welcome back to another video about Pure 1 chapter 2.4. In this video we are going to look at nothing but your favorite word start from a Q, quadratic. We're looking at quadratic functions and quadratic graphs. So a function, first of all, what's a function? A function is a mathematical relationship that maps each value of a set of input to output. So a function of x is denoted as, you probably know this from GCSE, f of x. So we use f of x to denote as a function. So for example, let's say we've got input in here on the left circle. Let's say we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it depends on the function. Let's say we're going to make an easier function this time. We're going to just call the function f of x, which is x squared. That means you've got to square everything. So your output, therefore, is going to be 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25. So the domain of a function is the set of input values. In other words, this thing, okay, is called the domain. Okay, and the range, you could guess the range is of a function is the set of output values. So this is the range. Okay, you could write as a set. So domain could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in here, and the range we'll call it y or f of x. Let's use f of x. So f of x is 1, 4, 16. Oops, I forgot the 9 and the 25. Right. So what are the roots? Well, the roots, you should have known this from GCSE. The roots of a function are the values of x when f of x equals 0. Simply, when you solve the equation, you make it equal 0, you solve it, you found value of x. Those values of x are known as the roots. Simple as. Example, if f of x equals x squared minus 3x and g of x equal x plus 5, where x, now this is the first time you've probably seen this, this symbol means belongs to a set of values. So belongs to, there's a set of real values. It's a Greek letter. Okay, so what are real values? Real values are simply anything that you put in a calculator that does not give you a maths error. So for example, root 2, 3, pi, 4, you know, it's 0.5, 1.6. What about what's not a real value? What's not real is, for example, when you put square root of minus 1, that's not real. Okay, so anyway, so it means x could be a lot of things, a lot of all real numbers. Find f of minus 4, should have known this. So f of minus 4 means you substitute minus 4 into the f of x. So when you see x, you put a minus 4 in there. Make sure you put a bracket around it. So whenever you do substitution, best thing to do is to put a bracket and then put in a calculator, let the calculator do the work for you. I know you'll be tempted to use your mental maths, but because all the question intervals maths are allowed, you're allowed to use a calculator, so why not? Do not let your intrusive thought to use mental maths, let it kill you, because if you try to use it, chances are you're going to make a mistake. So in here, not mental maths, it's just a handwritten mistake. 28, not 38, 28. Part B, find the value of x for f of x equals g of x. So we know f of x equals g of x means we'll solve the equation. And then it's a quadratic, so we'll move everything one side and solve it. So minus 4x minus 5 equals 0. So you can now, if you have the calculator, you can use a calculator and solve it. I'm going to show you how. But if you don't, just do normal factorizing and solving it, you should get x equals to 5 or x equals to minus 1. So if you have a calculator, you can go on menu and then equation function. Alternatively, the quick one, you can see A means if you press this A here, you quickly go, it's a shortcut to the menu, to the function tab. So when you would do polynomial, degree is 2 because quadratic, so we can put in the coefficient, so 1, and then minus 4 minus 5. You get x1 equals 5 or x1 equals x2 equals minus 1. So these are the answers. Okay, part C. Find the roots of f of x. Roots means we make the function equals 0. Now in here, remember, when you see this type of quadratic function without the constant value, you do want to factorize x out, not divide it, because if you divide it, you won't have x equals 0 as the answer. Okay, question D, find the roots. So x plus 5 equals 0, so x equals minus 5. All right, very, very simple. Example, next one. The function f is defined as f of x equals x squared plus 6x minus 5, where x belongs to all real numbers. Write part A, f of x in the form of x plus p squared plus q, and state the values of p and q. Now, by the way, if you know how to do all of this, you can just, pause the video, just do them all and check your answer with me. So question A, this format is the completing square format. So the question wants you to complete the square essentially. So we do that. So to do completing square, let me copy the question first. We can half that number plus 3 squared, subtract this 3 squared, which is 9, minus 5. So x plus 3 squared minus 14. Right, to double check your answer, you can expand a bracket and simplify it. You should get back to your original function. Question B, hence or otherwise. The word hence means you can use the result in part A. Use part A. Okay. Find the roots of f of x, leaving your answer in third form. So we have put this into this format, so we can, since we have to use hence, so we're going to make this equal 0. To write your answer in third form, I add 14 to the other side. So I need to find the roots, means make x subject square root. When I square root, I have plus and minus. So plus and minus root 14 and minus 3. So x equals plus and minus root 14 minus 3. So this one looks a bit weird. How do I write a bit neater? You can put a minus 3 in the front. That probably looks a bit slightly neater. Slightly, just slightly. Part C, write the minimum value of x and state the value of x for which it occurs. So they want you to find the minimum point or the turning point. So that's why we need to complete a square. To find turning point, we can use the completing square form. It's the opposite for this value. So 3 means minus 3, 14 minus 14, and that's the turning point. So the minimum value, okay, to answer the question, okay, the minimum value of f of x, this means the y value is minus 14. And the x value that occurs is minus 3. Okay, all right. If you're happy with this, pause the video, have a go, practice question 1 and practice question 2. Now, practicing question 2, if you don't know how to do this disguised quadratic. If you haven't heard of that word before, go back to the chapter 2.3 video, which we actually have a lesson to go through how to do disguised quadratic. All right, pause the video, have a go. When you're ready for the answer, you can press play. Here are the answers for practice question 1 and question 2. So practice question 1, you find the roots. There are different ways you can find the roots. You can either complete a square and make it equal 0 like the previous example, or you can simply, make it equal 0 and use a calculator to solve it for you. Remember, in A-level maths, you don't get any marks for showing how to factorize or how to use the quadratic formula. They expect you to use a calculator. Okay, so if you're wondering why am I so lazy skipping the steps, no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm telling you, as an examiner for marking the official series, you don't get any marks in between. So yeah. Okay, so and then to find the minimum value, you can complete a square, and they only ask for the minimum value of f of x, so you're interested in the y value only. What about the minus 2? It's not really required. And you actually can't write minus 2 minus 13, because that's not the minimum. That's the minimum. That's a turning point, but that's not the minimum value. All right, the minimum value is minus 13. So part B, the same thing. Question 2, I give you the final answer. If you got it right, well done. But if you don't, if you got it right, then move on to the next part. But if you don't, we'll go through how. So first of all, we're gonna let y. Okay, so we're gonna let y to be the middle term, so x squared. Then x to the power 4 becomes y squared, and x squared becomes y minus 6. Make it equal 0. Then I will probably put in a calculator and solve it. So 1 minus 6. I get 3 and minus 2. So y equals to 3 or y equals to minus 2. Put the x squared back in. and you realize, so when you square root 3, you have plus and minus root 3, that's your answer. But when you square root minus 2, you can't, because that will give you maths error or no real values, so reject. Okay, so here comes the second part of the lesson, where we have looked into the functions. The next part we're looking at graphs. So to sketch quadratic graphs, you should know how to sketch quadratic graphs already based on GCSE stuff. I told you a lot of the early part of A-level maths is about GCSE. 60%, actually 60% of Year 12 stuff is actually came from GCSE. So right, but why do we need the steps in here? Because later on in chapter 4, where we look at how to sketch quadratic graphs, cubic graphs, we can actually use the same steps. That's why it's important that we know the steps of sketching graphs in general. Alright, so first of all, we determine the shape of the parabola. Parabola is the name of the U shape or N shape that you have seen in quadratic graphs. So quadratic graphs look like this on this, right? So that's a name. Mathematical name is called a parabola, the shape of this. Okay, because it's not technically U, because if you have to write alphabet U is like this, isn't it? Anyway, so the mathematical name is called parabola. The next thing is we find a y-intercept by subbing x equals 0. Subbing is probably not is that an English word? Well, what did they say? English is important, but maths is importanter, So know the priority. Find the roots of equation by subbing y equals 0. So we're going to find a y-intercept and the roots. To find a turning point, coordinate turning point, we can complete the square. We can complete the square into the form of into the form of a x plus b squared x plus or minus b squared plus c, where the turning point is essentially minus b and the c term. So it's the opposite of whatever this is. Actually, should have a minus. It's the opposite of whatever this is, and take this as it is. So plus b means minus b, plus c means plus c in here. All right. So we complete square. Right. Next example. Oh, some of you might ask me, what about differentiation? I've learned differentiation in further maths GCSE. Can we not use it to find a turning point? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. In here, we are talking about where majority of students haven't done further maths GCSE. We talk about just using complete square for now. For those who do know what I'm talking about, later on in the chapter, there will be a thing called differentiation, which will be quite useful, open up a lot of different things. But for now, completing square is the way. Okay, so example, sketch a graph of y equals x squared minus 5x plus 4 and find the coordinates of its turning point. So to sketch a graph, first step, we determine the shape of the parabola. So first step, the shape is going to be a U shape, because we know it's positive x squared, because a positive x squared. All right. Second thing, we need to find a y-intercept. So make x equals 0. So when x equals 0, so y equals to 0 squared minus 5 times 0 plus 4, which is 4. So that's a y-intercept. Step 3, we're going to find the roots. So when y equals 0. So when y equals 0, 0 equals to x squared minus 5x plus 4. Use a calculator or just factorize it yourself. You should get x equals 1 or x equals 4. So these are the roots. Therefore, when I sketch a graph, so it has to pass through the y-intercept 4 somewhere here. Now sketching means it is not on scale. Alright, so you don't have to use a ruler and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, not like that. Alright, so what we just have to have a rough idea where the numbers are, where the graph crosses the axes. So 4 means you should be crossing a positive y-axis. 1 and 4 means here and here maybe. So that means the graph looks like this. Right, so we know that's a 4, that's a 1, that's a 4, because these are roots x and y. Yeah. That's what sketching means. Sketching is not plotting. Plotting is where you have the grids, you have the table values, and then you have to draw it really on scale, like science graph usually are plotting. Right, next part, we need to find the turning point. So turning point is easy. We just have to complete the square. So y equal, let's complete the square. Half that 5 means minus 2.5 squared, and then we subtract 2.5 squared plus our 4. So put in a calculator of negative 2.5 squared plus 4 means I got negative 2.25. So y equals to x minus 2.5 squared minus 2.25, right? So this one has no bracket because we always square the number and then we minus it. So minus 2.5 minus 2.25 means this point is 2.5 minus 2.25. That's the minimum point, so we'll put it there, which makes a lot of sense. Because if you look at this, 2.5 is between 1 and 4, negative is on the negative y-axis. Yeah, perfect. All right, if you're happy with this, let's do one more example. Well, I thought it was a practice question, that's why I say that. Anyway, so anyway, I am surprised by my own notes. Example, sketch graph of y equals minus 2x squared plus 4x minus 3. Find the coordinates of the turning point. So, same thing. Okay, sketch a graph, shape. Step 1. We know it's an n shape because it's a negative x squared. We've got negative 2x squared, so negative x squared. Shape is therefore n shape. Next, find the y coordinates, y-intercept. So when x equals 0, so y equals to 0 plus 0 minus 3, which is minus 3. When y equals 0, 0 equals to minus 2x squared plus 4x plus minus 3. Now you can factorize, use quadratic formula, whatever. I'm just going to use a calculator. So to use a calculator, I can just do minus 2, 4, minus 3. Did I make a mistake somewhere? Minus 2, 4, minus 3. Minus 2, 4 minus... Okay, there's an I, means there's no real root. So no real root. So no real root. It gives you maths error. That means it's not touching the x-axis. Okay, yep. We know this. We've sort of done this. It's quite rare in GCSE, but now in A-level, everything is possible. So, right. So what does it look like? Now, when the y-intercept is minus 3, now it could be both. It could be either like this, right? Because all you need is a negative y-intercept minus 3, or it could be like this. So to know which one is it, so to work it out, to find out which way it is, we can find the turning point. To find the turning point, you need to complete the square. To complete the square of that one is a bit cheeky. We need to factorize a minus 2 out first. So x squared minus 2x minus 3. So you need to factorize a minus 2 in the first two terms. And then y equals to, if you do complete square in here, x minus 1 squared minus 1 minus 3. So y equals minus 2. Now this skill, it becomes quite basic in chapter 6 when we talk about circles. Expand the bracket, so minus 2 times minus 1 is plus 2. So y equals minus 2, x minus 1 squared minus 1. So the minimum point, the turning point, the turning point in this, in fact, is a maximum point. The turning point is minus 1. Oh, actually, it's 1 minus 1. It's 1 minus 1. Yep, 1 minus 1. So therefore, the graph, the turning point has to be 1 minus 1. If we draw it like this, the x coordinate for this point is negative. Therefore, it's not correct. So we have to draw it this way. That's a minus 3. That's a 1 minus 1. Yeah, and that's the answer. Right, slightly more difficult, slightly more challenging. If you're happy with this, have a go. Practice question 3. And yeah, so pause the video, have a go. When you're ready for the answer, you can press play. So here are the answers. Okay, question A, shape is U. When x is 0, y equals 4. When y equals 0, you realize there's no real roots. The minimum point means completing square is completed for you. So it's 0, 4. So 0, 4, which is also y-intercept. Therefore, it looks like this. Part B, so the shape is an N shape. X equals 0, y equals 3. When y equals 0, you get x equals minus a half and 3. These are roots. The tricky part for this question is the completing square. Now, don't worry about if you find it too difficult, because you actually learn differentiation later on, which makes your life a lot easier. In here, so you complete square. First of all, factorize a minus 2 out. So plus 5 becomes a negative 5 over 2. Then to complete a square, you need half that number. So half of 5 over 2 becomes 5 over 4. Then you have to subtract this number squared. So minus 25 over 16. Then you multiply the minus 2 back in So minus 2 is this. Minus 2 times negative 25 over 16 becomes positive 25 over 8. Plus this together, you get 49 over 8. Therefore, the turning point is the opposite value, which is from negative becomes positive 5 over 4. And this one, 49 over 8. So when you sketch graph, it looks like this. Now, you can also rely on your calculator to help you find the turning point. So if you've got a calculator in here, let me put in the value. So minus 2, 5, and 3. And then you can find your values 3 and minus a half. And then if you keep pressing equal, you find the maximum is 5 over 4, which is our x value, and the y value is 49 over 8. However, to find the turning point, you must show your steps either through completing square or either through differentiation. So you will need to show the steps. So the calculator give it to you is just to help you verify your answer in that sense. Okay, right. So and that's the end of the lesson.